Hey, Margie here. Would you like to know how you can use something as simple as essential oils to help with fracture healing and stress reduction? Well, if so, you are in the right place. And I'm really excited about our special guest, Jodi Sternoff Cohen. And Jodi is a best-selling author, award-winning journalist, functional practitioner, and founder of Vibrant Blue Oils, where she has combined her training in nutritional therapy and aromatherapy to create unique proprietary blends of organic and wild-crafted essential oils. She has helped over 50,000 clients heal from brain-related challenges, including anxiety, insomnia, and autoimmunity. And today we're going to focus on what to do, how we can use essential oils for healing fractures, as well as helping reduce that stress response. What can we do so that we can live life more in flow? And these are such an easy thing to add to your life. So I'm so happy that Jodi has joined us today. So stay tuned. Welcome, Jodi. I'm so happy to have you here on the podcast. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you. I love your flowers. They're beautiful.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I love sunflowers. They just make me happy.
Gorgeous.
Well, anyway, we're going to talk about all sorts of things, but I have to share, because I don't know if I've shared this yet, that I unfortunately fractured it's called the scaphoid bone. It's a really small fracture, but it happens. I was on vacation and I was going to test out this e-bike that was a little too high. When I went to get off, hadn't even gone biking yet. The bike was so heavy that it knocked me over, and I put my wrist out, and all this, like 100 pounds, whatever, went in my wrist, and I had this fracture. So anyway, I was excited. I decided, you might as well use what happens to me as a learning, as an opportunity for others to learn too. So if I can learn, which I've already been doing with supplements and all sorts of things, what I can do to expedite the healing and really enhance the healing, because especially this bone, this is one that doesn't have a very good blood supply. And they said my bones must be very strong because most people my age fracture their radius, but instead I fractured one with a younger person injuring, but it has a worse blood supply. But anyway, so the nice thing is that I know from the past, because we've talked before, that you have really talked about how you can use essential oils for healing fractures, which is so powerful. So I want to go over that, as well as, we have a lot of anxiety the world right now is going through so much, and there's so much anxiety. And I know personally, I use your oils on a regular basis, and it really keeps me calm and lets me go with the flow. And I just wanted to share it because it's a very inexpensive, phenomenal tool that everybody can use. So we have a lot of ground to cover, Jodi, but welcome.
Thank you. I know, I fractured, I had never broken a bone. I was cleaning windows and one of them fell down and I fractured my hand. And so, there are times when really rotten things happen and I'm like, I guess I just get to learn something new,
Yes, I know. That's how I'm looking at it. I'm doing all these interesting things, which I will share. And I absolutely might as well look at it as that kind. That's how I look at life, okay, this happens, but what can we do and what can we learn and move on? So on that note, why don't we start with that, Jodi, in terms of how can we really use these essential oils to help with fracture healing? Because that sounds sort of like, really?
You really hit the nail on the head when you were talking about blood supply. So when anything in our body is injured, what happens? All the fluid flows there, the blood, the lymph, so that it can kind of carry with it. They're like the little ambulance, all of the healing nutrients. And so it swells up. And so anything that we can do to help with fluid flow, getting the blood in, getting the lymph there, and making sure that the pathways are there to leave really enhances healing. And so we have a circulation blend. The way I describe it, I live in Seattle. It seems like our freeway is always under construction. So instead of having 4 lanes, we have 1. But that means that there's traffic backed up. And then once you kind of narrow it down and get through that 1 lane, it opens up because there's more space. So oils can be used to help vasodilate and create more space so that there's more space for the good things to get in and the bad things to get out. And the other thing that happens, any kind of injury, like your fascia kind of grips. And I'm really obsessed with exploring the, interdynamics of your nerves and your fascia and your lymph. And what I found is that when your fascia is constricted, that also impedes flow and movement. And so actually my favorite oil for pain, because sometimes even after the fracture heals, when the weather gets weird, you like feel that strange pain. I love our fascia release blend for pain. I put it on all the time. But when I was healing my bone, and you mentioned red light and BPC 157, like I threw everything in the kitchen sink at this, and it healed so quickly. And I was able to kind of regain usage so quickly. So just anything that helps with fluid flow, and you can put it, if you are wearing a cast. I also had one that I could take off. So I would just put it on and then put that back off. But my daughter's friend had a fracture and she couldn't. So I would just have her apply it kind of at the elbow point.
Okay, so let's talk about the fascia for a second. So I have the fascia blend, and I love the fascia blends. I think it's just really, really great because, it's something people don't realize how critical fascia is and how, when that's constricted, that can affect every area of your body. I know people are always surprised when they have pain in their left toe, but yet the fascia in their right shoulder, or
Yeah.
fascia after an injury, it can happen anywhere. That's like what's so fascinating. And I found as a physical therapist with fascia. So in terms of the fascia blend, how many times a day? Like what would be the protocol? How often would you put
I honestly, with this one, just tell people put it wherever it hurts. Like
it?
I do yoga or Pilates almost every day. And it's so fun to me at 55, like what, is either tight or hurts. It's often my hip, my knee, sometimes my back if we're doing heart opening. And I literally just roll it on as we're doing yoga. And it's dramatic, like if you're trying to do a chair pose and you can only sit so low because your hips are tight, and you put it on and suddenly you're like, oh, look at me. I'm 20 now. It's pretty dramatic. And what it's doing, the fascia it's kind of the connective tissue that holds us all together. But it's more than that. It's also where we stuff our unprocessed emotions, especially, for women raised at a certain time, like, good girls don't cry. We don't get angry. We don't get upset. So what do? We just stuff our feelings. We keep going, keep moving, but it's not like they're eliminated. Our body holds on to them and kind of, stores them, and they start to obstruct other things. And so we need to find this almost emotional car wash way of like letting our feelings go without necessarily re-experiencing them. And it's really interesting to me. I'm slightly obsessed with heart math, and their research director, Roland McCready, was really talking about this idea of heart coherence. They've done a ton of research that the heart sends more signals to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. And so when your body is kind of scanning for safety or danger, that stress response, it's not only your five senses that are taking in information, there's information that the body is sending to the brain, both from the heart and the fascia. And so you have to kind of, if you have this maladaptive signal, say you grew up in a household where your parents screamed a lot, or, there was crazy high pressure to succeed, or whatever, we all have our childhoods and they all kind of help us become who we are, and we get to unpack them later. So one way to unpack them is to put the heart into coherence or the fascia into coherence so that the signal from the body to the brain is not stressful and calm. And so Roland McCready was saying you really can't talk therapy your way out of trauma, because if the trauma is in the tissues, you just need to put the tissues back into balance so that it sends a different message to the heart. And that's something I've been very aggressively working on it. And I think I shared, I've had chronic anxiety my whole life, to the point where it was such common background noise that I didn't even know it was there. I just became, you have these coping mechanisms. I became so used to it that I had all of these tricks and tools to get things done, even when I was kind of having an internal panic attack. And so one of them is our parasympathetic blend. Your autonomic nervous system controls all of your automatic functions, your ability to digest your food, detoxify your waste. It controls your heart rate, your breathing, all of these things, and it's designed to keep you alive. So it literally has two gears. If there is a perception of danger, everyone uses the example of the lion chasing you down the street. I've never seen a lion chase anyone down the street, But I have noticed that if I turn on the news and they're talking about a school shooting, where does my brain immediately go? Oh my God, could that happen to my kid? And all of a sudden, even though it's not a physical danger, it's an emotional perceived danger, my body is reacting as if that threat is real. And so it's allocating resources towards survival. The blood is routed to the arms and the legs so I can fight back or flee. And something changes in the brain. It changes your focus. It gets you into that anxiety fear state where you don't see options, you only see problems. And it's a very rigid state. And ideally, the danger passes. You shift into the, safety gauge of your nervous system, the parasympathetic branch. Healing is turned back on. But often, in this modern life like that, especially during election cycles, that doesn't happen. We're constantly bombarded with, fear marketing so that we respond. So the gear shift between danger and safety, resources towards survival versus healing is your vagus nerve, cranial nerve number 10, which is the gut-brain axis. So anatomically, it starts at the back of the head, splits, winds around both sides behind the earlobes, and then winds through every organ of digestion and detoxification. And this is what deep breathing does. This is what yoga does. It helps to activate your parasympathetic nervous system. So safety, where healing can occur. The reason I started using oils is because I stumbled upon this interesting research that there was a surgically implanted FDA-approved device that was placed behind the earlobe to, naturally stimulate the vagus nerve, or not naturally, to send an electrical signal. And it occurred to me like, wow, oils are stimulatory. I wonder if I could use just a topically applied oil to stimulate that nerve. And so that's what I've been doing. That was always kind of my like, oh my God, I'm having an anxiety attack. Seriously, just to give you a sense of how bad it was, I would have panic attacks in supermarket checkout lines. Like I would sometimes have to literally leave, you spend all that time getting all the food your kids want and then like leave because I couldn't handle it. There were times when I couldn't even answer the phone or call someone back. There were times when my dog, they look at you like, it's time for a walk, Mom. And I'm like, oh my God, I just can't right now. Like everything felt like too much. And this made it possible.
Well, Jodi, couple things. First of all, this is not to be underplayed because the stress response and being in that sympathetic state, you cannot heal. And that's what as a physical therapist for many, many, many years, over 40 years now, that's what I would see, that you couldn't ignore this piece of the puzzle for any healing, whether it's chronic pain, whether it's osteoporosis, whatever it is, this had to be dealt with. And so, as you said, deep breathing, heart math, I love all of those things. But what's nice is we can add the oils to it. And it's funny because this is my favorite, the parasympathetic, out of all your oils, which I love all of them. But this one, I just love it. I have it right next to my bed. And actually, years ago, we were both at a meeting together and you had given these out many years ago. And it was such a stimulating meeting that at night, like we would go, damn, it was like a big party before you go to sleep. And I was wired. And so I did my breathing, but then it was like the parasympathetic that was able to calm me down so I could sleep. But I use this all the time and it smells so good. And I do just what you said, right behind. So tell everybody, because I just think this is a gem of all gems. And we have a special deal on it. It's only $15 to test it out. So let's just
that includes shipping. So yeah, it's just, it's really interesting with reflex points. There are always divots. So if you feel behind your earlobe, you're going to feel a little divot. And that's exactly where you apply it. And that's actually where the vagus nerve is the thickest and the most accessible to the surface. It's kind of the easy access point to help stimulate it. And yes, deep breathing works, but when I was in clinical practice, I think we basically attract ourselves as clients, right? So I'd get all these busy moms, and a lot of them had really tricky kids or like husbands that had really stressful jobs or really demanding mothers. They'd be like, oh my God, I'm just trying to make dinner. And, the dog is barking, the kid is screaming, the husband lost something and the phone is ringing. And they're like, I just can't do the deep breathing. I'm like, I get it. It's too much. But guess what you can do? You can just have this right by, in your purse. You can just smell it. You can topically apply it. It takes 2 seconds. And they're like, that is so awesome, because I will actually do that. Like I will not do the deep breathing, but I will do this. And then suddenly everything else feels manageable. I turn off the stove so the food doesn't burn. I pick up the baby. I go check and see, honey, what do you need? I call my mother-in-law back and say, hey, can I call you in an hour after we're done with dinner? I maybe put the baby in the Bjorn and take the dog on the walk. Like I can problem solve because I'm not overwhelmed. And that I actually do. And, it's kind of like all the supplements in our pantry. If the supplements are in the graveyard and we're not taking them, they're not going to help us.
Yeah, the interesting thing is, let's talk about the olfactory, your breathing,
Yeah.
and why that works so quickly. I mean, I do that too, because I truly love the smell of this. I would like, just putting it there wouldn't be enough for me. So I always
Yeah.
inhale it. I put a little on my wrist, and my husband sometimes says, are you okay? Because I'm breathing it. Because it's just so good. It's like, oh, I
It's funny. I think smell is our most powerful and most underutilized scent. Smell is critical to survival. We smell food, we smell water, we smell predator odor. We used to joke back in the fraternity days, like if we smelled a certain cologne, we were like, oh, that guy's creepy. We're staying away from him. For car. But it's amazing. And what people don't realize is nose cells are brain cells. When we smell something, the blood-brain barrier is the thinnest there. It goes directly to the brain. And that we have a couple of systems in our body, that help keep us safe, right? Our nervous system, our limbic system, our hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal axis. So the limbic system is with the amygdala, and the amygdala is constantly scanning the environment, both our five senses and our body, for danger, right? And it can kind of get a little maladaptive where you overreact to things. So think of if, you're sensitive to all smells, all foods, this is your limbic system overreacting. And so you want to kind of reset the thermostat in it, change the gauge. Like your amygdala, you might be taking a walk in the woods and your amygdala is like, oh my God, it's a snake. And you jump back, and then your prefrontal cortex, which is easily accessed through the nostrils because it's your forehead, checks in and says, no, that's a stick. You're fine. So you want to kind of reset the temperature on your limbic system. So we have a blend called Limbic Reset that's really high in all of the oils that are kind of known to help reset the gauge, called sesquiterpenes. They're all the expensive oils, chakaroo, like Melissa and sandalwood, cedarwood, helichrysum, very expensive oils. But, when you don't have to buy all the raw materials and make it yourself, it's more affordable. So we've been using this to really help reset the gauge in the limbic system so that you can better calm down and, modify your maladaptive stress response.
And this is relatively a new oil that you just created.
It's brand new. Yeah. I mean, talk about necessity is the mother of invention. I joke that life is a roller coaster, right? Sometimes you go down, sometimes you go up. I kind of got hit hard and fell into what's known as a dorsal vagal state. I was just like, why am I so unmotivated? And like, I love to exercise. I'm like, I don't really feel like going to that aerobics class today. I just do yoga, whatever I do. I just was like not myself. And then someone said, oh, you're dorsal vagal. So the vagus nerve.
Only in our community, right?
Yeah.
Would someone say that to you? Oh, of course, you're dorsal vagal.
My feeling is once you know what's wrong, then it's so much easier to fix it. So just to explain that, your vagus nerve has different kind of pathways. Ideally, you're in ventral vagal, which is like connection, healing. That's kind of the ideal state. Sometimes your sympathetic branch takes over and you become sympathetic dominant, which a lot of us are, especially in our 20s. We work really hard. We're like super caffeinated. We're go, sleep when we're dead, and that can only last so long. And then we kind of hit dorsal vagal, which I actually think is what a lot of depression is, where you just have no energy, no motivation. It's where all of a sudden you're scrolling and, oh gosh, where did the hour go while you were looking at reels? It's a very different state. And what that often is just you don't have any more capacity. Your nervous system is exhausted, your adrenals are exhausted, your limbic system is maladapted. The temperature is set to the wrong gauge. So you're overreacting to things. So if we can reset the temperature so that, every stick is not a snake, so that every interaction isn't requiring, the intensity of a full-blown conflict, then suddenly it's far easier to navigate life.
Absolutely. It makes such a difference. So I just want to clarify. So the difference between the parasympathetic, which I've seen is incredibly effective for me as well as so many other people, and now this next step up. So is this you want to just explain like who would use the parasympathetic versus this new oil, or is it just a degree?
I think the parasympathetic, truthfully, it helps with most things. But what I was saying, it's like, back in the day before I balanced my adrenals and stopped getting period cramps, it was that time of month and I'd pop an Advil or 7 and the cramp would go away. And I'd be like, okay, now I can go to class or go to work or whatever. And the next month, the period would come back and the cramps would come back. So it was wonderful for managing the symptoms, but it wasn't necessarily addressing the root cause. And so I was using parasympathetic for decades and it would always make me feel better, like immediately. But again, the next day I'd be like, gosh, I'm anxious again. Like it's helping with the symptoms, but not necessarily addressing the root cause. What am I missing? And so I really started working, looking at the terrain of kind of the neck and where I was applying it. I'm very fortunate to live in close proximity and be dear friends with Dr. Christine Schaffner, who treats chronically ill clients. And she was finding that lymphatic congestion in the neck around the vagus nerve was impeding function. There's actually a Tufts neuroscientist, Michael Van Eckler, who came up with the vagus nerve infection hypothesis. So she taught me, start to drain the lymph in the clavicles so that the neck isn't congested. If you ever have to fly on an airplane in the middle row between linebackers, good luck even turning a page of your book. You have no room. If your vagus nerve is constricted by, lymphatics and with poor drainage, it's not going to fire as well. So I started draining the lymph. I was, we have a lymph oil that I was using on the clavicles, the sides of the neck, under the arms, around the gut, the hip creases, behind the knees. I was religious at doing that. And it helped, again, little incremental improvement, but not really what I was hoping to see. And so I'm like, what am I missing again? And then I started to look at the fascia and how the fascia, especially, those of us who have had any kind of trauma, we brace for impact, right? We fetal position, we protect our core. And then the impact passes. I think of when my kids were little, taking them to a swimming pool, I'd waddle around behind them, like, don't fall in, don't drown. You're kind of always on high alert. And I think my body was stuck in that high alert. So if the fascia is congested on the back, it's almost like squeezing the lymph, so it can't really flow. So I started working tremendously on that, going to, yoga therapy to kind of open the fascia, using the fascia release, and at the same time, opening the heart. And one day, it was this crazy thing. I was driving somewhere and there was a traffic jam, and it was clear to me I wasn't going to make the appointment. And the old Jodi would have been spinning, would have been pulling like crazy, dangerous, illegal U-turns, trying to find an alternate route, like just making herself bananas. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm not going to make this. I wonder if I can I'm parked basically in traffic, go online and reschedule. Okay, I can. All right, let's just see this. This will be interesting. How long is this going to take? And ultimately a policeman showed up and routed us back this banana pants way. It was an hour and a half of driving and going nowhere. And what surprised me was my own response. Like the old Jodi would have been spinning. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm on the water slide. I'm just going to go along for the ride. This is going to take a crazy amount of time and it will be fine. And in that moment, I realized I was different. I realized that background noise, the static that was always running, the anxiety was gone. And I didn't need the parasympathetic. I didn't need anything. I just was kind of calm and in the moment. And I had this weird, what did I just do right? Like, what did I get right? And I realized it was this combination of the 5 oils, the parasympathetic, which helps with the nervous system, the limbic reset, because I do think, nothing in the body works in isolation. They all work together. So I'm regulating the nervous system, I'm regulating the limbic system and kind of calming those danger messages. And then the lymph, which works in tandem with the fascia and the heart, I'm sending safety signals from the body to the brain. So I kind of covered all the bases. Like, if you think of the electrical panel in your house, in order to like turn off the power, you have to switch all the I don't know, the little gadgets to one side. Sorry, my brain fog's still there. I forget words. But I finally somehow was able to reboot my system so that I'm regulated. And it's a very different experience to be me now. Like things that used to bother me, the other day I was driving somewhere and whatever, there was a bottleneck in the road and I technically got there first, but this big truck decided it was going first. And it took a fairly long time to get through. And I'm like, well, whatever. They could have let me go first, but who cares? I'll be late. Like, it doesn't matter. I'm showing up so differently in a way that I didn't even know was possible.
Wow, I love this. And so I think it sounds like the biggest difference, because you've already been doing fascia, was adding this limbic, this new.
Oh my God. Yes. Yes. Because I think, so many of us have, one thing that Roland McCready of HeartMath said that really resonated with me is that the amygdala is looking for familiar. Like we think it's looking for safe, but it's looking for familiar. So for example, if you grew up in a household where familiar was everyone screaming and interrupting each other, that's your baseline. That's your familiar. So if you're in a relationship with a really calm, easygoing person, that doesn't feel familiar. So you start picking fights because that feels familiar because you have a maladaptive baseline until you're able to reset your baseline so that suddenly you're not kind of craving conflict and drama for familiar. And so I think that's what I did.
Wow. So with this limbic, where do you put that one?
You can either smell it. Smell is amazing. It lasts a lot longer if you smell. You can always put it on the forehead. Dr. Schaffner was telling me that these forehead points are really powerful. You can put it on the whole length of the forehead to help with the prefrontal cortex activation. And then anything you can do to kind of, like sometimes if you have a headache, you put your hand here. What you're doing is you're generating heat and blood flow, and any kind of fluid flow is healing. So that just kind of helps you reset things. You can add affirmations if you want, but just smelling it, it's basically sending that safety signal to your brain. And we know that smell can be used to sense danger. It can also be used to sense safety. My daughter in high school had to find a Nobel laureate. So she picked this Seattle Nobel laureate, Linda Buck, who did olfactory research. Linda Buck was able to specifically identify olfactory receptors that picked up predator odor or danger. And then she took it one step further and she found that smelling roses actually canceled out those olfactory perceptions of danger. So you can cancel out the danger signal with the safety signal. And you can do that with oils.
I love that. I mean, I'm such a big person on whatever works, but combining things, because there's so many practices that I do and teach that I love, but we can augment them with the oils and even make them that much more effective, which is just so great.
Or like, your flowers. It's funny. My husband, they're kind of off camera, but my husband got me flowers.
Oh, beautiful.
And I was thinking about it, like flowers, they're beautiful and they look beautiful, but they also they smell beautiful. They add that nice kind of safety scent to the room, or my daughter used to row crew in Seattle in cold, wet winters. And I would always make something, she really liked like stir fries and stews and soups. So she was always like, I love coming into the house because it's like warm and it smells good, It was just a way to know, like, you're safe, you're dry,
Oh, I love that. All right, well, I'm going to have to try this one. And you said it's more expensive than other oils, but you are having a sale.
Yeah, we priced them all. They're all kind of priced at the same rate. This one just, we don't make very much margin on it because it's really expensive oils. But yes, we have a Black Friday sale starting November 22nd. It's our biggest sale of the year, 25% off everything. And then for people who want to try the parasympathetic, we want to make that really accessible to you because smell is so personal. You kind of want to put it on your body and have it in your hand. So not this bottle, but the smaller bottle Yeah, for $15, which includes shipping in the US and
Yes.
can a teeny
So
bit
yeah,
more.
it's so worth trying because it's
Yeah.
quick. It really is quick. You just smell it.
Yeah.
This, as I said, this is my go-to. I love this one, Jodi. I've loved it since you gave it to me, years ago at the
Here's
conference.
the
Yeah.
party.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hey, Margie here. High quality supplements are a big part of a comprehensive osteoporosis program. To help you, I offer a significant discount every day in my supplement store through FullScript. FullScript has the most extensive catalog of professional grade supplements and wellness products I've ever found. So all you need to do is go to tinyurl.com. That's tinyurl.com/supplements for less. And you'll get to my FullScript store, and in there, you'll see my favorite bone building supplements. So make sure to check it out, and the link will also be in the show notes. So let's get back to the show. Okay, so let's go back to fracture healing. If there's any other one, so we know the fascia. I just wanted to say something else. As a physical therapist, the fascia piece is, and I used to work with head, neck, and TMJ, and a lot of people that had different traumas. And I'm trained in myofascial release. And so when the fascia is released, emotions come out, all sorts of things happen. It is unbelievable how powerful the fascia is. So I just want to let everyone know, yes, this oil is really good, but just know that the fascia, if you have something going on, any kind of fascial work is incredible. And then in conjunction with the oil is even better. But
Well, and I think it expands your capacity, like I always hear that example, like if your cup is overflowing and you try to run across the hall, it's going to spill everywhere. If it's like halfway full, you have more capacity and it won't throw you into trauma. Yeah, the fascia release blend is a combination of oils to support physical and emotional health. And I find it's so interesting to me. It always seems to happen like in yoga when I'm doing kind of a difficult stretch. Like suddenly I'll feel like, for me, it's often sadness or anger. I'm like, oh, wow, I feel that really big emotion. And sometimes I'll, start to cry or I'll just like release it. Sometimes I cough, sometimes I shake, but I can just tell it's almost like, oh, okay, I'm just letting go of that. My first marathon, I wore way too many clothes and, I it's just like, bye-bye shirt, bye-bye sweatshirt, like just letting it go. And that's kind of how I feel like I am with, the emotions. It's just a really gentle, easy, not re-traumatizing way to release things.
love that. All right, so let's talk about any other oils for fracture healing that you recommend.
I think the big ones are really with fluid flow. I think I told you I went hiking in Scottsdale and twisted my ankle on the way down and then took a stupid, crazy hot shower. And suddenly my ankle swelled up and I like couldn't even put weight on it. I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? Did I break it? Should I go to the ER? And, my former athlete husband is like, no, you caused inflammation with the heat. Elevate and ice, and I not only did that, but I added the circulation, the lymph and the fascia, everything to help the fluids, the healthy flow of fluid. All of a sudden it was totally fine and I could put weight on it. The other thing I learned, we went to Italy this summer and did that gorgeous Path of the Gods hike in Positano, which is amazing. You're supposed to end and take the bus down, but it was 107 degrees and this crazy long line to get the bus. And my husband's like, let's just walk. We can walk. I'm like, oh, what a good idea. Until I realized that we were walking 3 miles downstairs and my knees, my former marathon knees, do not like stairs. And we got back to the hotel and I'm like, I don't know if I'm ever going to walk again. Like that might not have been my choice. But I had this idea. I'm like, I know that there's lymph drainage on the back of the knee. So I put lymph all over the back of the knee. And I know there's fascia in the front of the knee. So I put fascia on the front of the knee. And not only it's almost like, changing the engine in your automobile. Like not only did the pain go away because the fluid was able to move, but all of a sudden I could do stairs better. I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe I was thinking this wrong. Maybe it's just like working with the body to kind of get the fluids to carry the good things in and the bad things out. So that's, you might have more insight, but that's what I've noticed for myself and for clients, especially the knees. People are very excited about that.
Yeah, because so many people have arthritis and inflammation, and it really impedes their exercise program. And
Exactly.
oftentimes, so what you're saying is you can also use this in terms of, do you have a favorite for inflammation?
Anti-inflammatory. Actually, it's so funny. I've been playing with this lately. My daughter's best friend was putting it on the bottom of her feet before bed and saying that it completely cleared up all of her acne and skin things. And I'm
Which
like,
one? Which one?
anti-inflammatory
Oh,
on the
oh,
bottom
the
of the.
inflammatory. Oh, okay.
So I've been playing with that, and it's kind of amazing because I don't have restless leg, but sometimes I'll have like one of my knees will like be uncomfortable. Like it will wake me up. Sometimes I'll get like knee pain in the middle of the night, which is so strange. But since I've been doing that on the bottom of the feet, not only like no knee pain, no, I'm super weird. I palpate my gut all the time to see how inflamed I am. My gut inflammation has gone down. Like it's been pretty dramatic.
And you want to share, I always found it so interesting because I believe when you ask for guidance, you get guidance. And how do you come up with your blends? You want to share how you're,
Yeah,
yeah, it's
I
so
really
interesting.
downloaded. It's almost I guess I pray and God answers. I get really clear on what are the qualities that I want. And then I get these ideas. Like I just know it's this combination. And then I start to refine. I start to really research, okay, these are the downloads I got. Why would this work? How does this work? And then I usually create like 5 different versions and start to play with what's the right amount. And I have some practitioners that help me narrow it down. And then I kind of go back and, it's almost like writing a book, right? You write your first draft, then you modify, then you get other people to look at it, then you fine tune it some more. So it's a kind of a laborious process, and it usually takes a couple months, but that's it. It really starts with the intention and kind of trying to figure out what, like fascia was interesting because it is emotional and physical and mental also. And so there are oils there that help with vasodilation, with heat, with kind of movement. There are oils that help with grounding. It's much more nuanced and complicated than I need a salad dressing and I've got these spices in my rack. It's nuanced.
Yeah, I just find it so fascinating because everybody has their special gifts and their talents, and people get
Yeah.
downloads on all sorts of things. But here you get downloads on specific oils, and you have to add this and you have to add that. And
Almost like the
it's
plants are
amazing.
talking to me. Like I can feel, it's so weird to explain, but I can feel kind of what properties they bring to the equation and then how they interplay with other oils. Like certain oils, like ylang ylang is actually just a really nice harmonizer. Like it just kind of makes things flow better.
Yeah, no, I just find I sort of love that you have that gift that you're able to sort of figure out.
Oh,
So
thank you.
we could go on and on. I'm excited to try the new one. I'm going to put more fascia now on my fracture right
Yeah.
down it. Yep, I have that oil, so I'm going to do more of that. Jodi, you always have such good stories to share. Is there any story you want to share to illustrate some of the things you've talked about today?
It's not necessarily an uplifting story, but one of my best friends from college, I've been so in awe of how she's navigated something really rocky and how it's kind of opened the door for the best case scenario. So they were dropping her daughter off at college, and they were done. She was just saying goodbye to her daughter in the sorority, and her husband went to the parked car, parallel parked on the street, to just put some things in the back before they drove home. Somehow, in the moment that he was behind the car, another car crashed into the car behind him, pinned him. Um, and they had to amputate one leg immediately so he didn't bleed out. And then they wound up amputating the other leg. And this is like a marathoner or a skier, like a huge athlete. And I am so in awe of how she navigated this. She had one kind of, I can't believe this is my nightmare, not my life moment. And then she just went into what she does, like, okay, we're just going to find the absolute best plastic surgeon to help with phantom limb pain. Okay, we're going to find the absolute best rehab facility. Okay, he's coming home in a week. We're going to find the absolute best way to retrofit the house. Okay, we're going to figure out the best prosthetics. And it's fascinating to me because she posted every day on Caring Bridge, and she was so optimistic and upbeat and really found, like we were able to watch the football game and our team won. We were able to try this new restaurant and it was delicious. Like it was so optimistic. And I just watched how like doors flew open for her. Like interestingly, They were trying to get transferred to Northwestern Hospital for this exceptional plastic surgeon who invented this phantom limb pain surgery. And she just put out, like, does anyone know this doctor? And it turned out I knew my friend did. And so my friend made a call and they got in the hour. And it's so interesting to me. I actually wrote a blog on this, that when you kind of go to hope, it goes along with nervous system regulation. When you're able to see things in a positive light and just allow for the best possible outcome to come in, it often does. And I mean, I cannot think of a worse situation. Like I lost a child in a car accident, and I have to say that's horrible, but I'm very grateful I have my legs. Like that would be so much harder for me. And just how much in integrity and grace and kindness, and just watching her navigate this process, this very difficult process. She said to me, I used to call this my nightmare, and now it's just my life. Like when you're able to say, like, okay, this is just my life, then you're able to show up in the best possible way. So I have so much admiration for her and for how you can navigate really, really hard things.
Wow, that's really quite incredible. And I so believe that what you focus on grows. And if you're focusing on the possibilities and leave open that space, as you said, that's beautiful. I'm glad they're doing well. Wow, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, she's a warrior. She's amazing.
And is there anything else you want to share with anybody? Any other information that you'd like to share with the audience?
The only other thing, I think I love biographies, and whenever life hits a bump, I look for inspiration, because I guess if I know that somebody else went through something similarly hard or harder and was okay, then I could be okay because someone else could do it, so I could do it. So sometimes I go back and reread Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. I find that very inspiring. And he has this one quote, between the stimulus and the response, there is a space. And in that space lies our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. And I find, in terms of emotional regulation, the parasympathetic blend and the limbic reset blend really give me that space. Like, no matter what kind of, we can't control, obviously, anything that's going on in the world, the election, the weather, there's a lot, right? But we can always control how we respond. And the more we're able to regulate, the more the best possible opportunity and response shows up.
I love that. And I love Viktor Frankl. And that's one of the things I teach in my happiness program, being a victor and not a victim. And he is the all-time victor. How when you take something and instead of for me, okay, well, what can I do? And it's so great that, I'm so grateful to you, Jodi, for creating these oils. And you've just helped so many people with the oils, and also your story and how how you can incorporate things and really, really make a difference in people's lives. So thank you so much. And thank you for these good offers that people can, again, try the $15. That's with shipping. So it's sort of a no-brainer. And they're also good stocking stuffers, right? Right.
No, it's fabulous. It's a great stocking stuffer.
But check it out and let us know. I always like to hear when you try something new, we're always interested in hearing how it benefits you or what you found. So please share that with us. So thank you so much for joining me here today. And I have some new information for myself, and I will keep sharing on all things fracture healing. But thanks so much. It's always a pleasure being with you.
I know. Thank you. Speed healing.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed my interview with Jodi as much as I did. And now some new ways that you can use essential oils to hopefully no one else needs to enhance fracture healing. But if you do, the information is there. But also just to reduce that stress response so that you can go with the flow and it doesn't topple you over. And the nice thing with essential oils, you can add it to all the practices you're doing. So highly recommend checking it out. As I said, this is my favorite, the parasympathetic, and all the links will be in the show notes. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.